as David said, my name is Tim Merkel. I'm one of the founding partners here at Big Compass, and I've had the opportunity to work with integration technologies now for almost 20 years. And throughout that time, I've seen technologies come and go, and each one of them promised to be the silver bullet for your integration needs. And some of them really were game changers, and some of them were actually counterproductive. Having spent several years now working with serverless, I can say that it's the real deal. This technology really does stand to be a game changer for the integration space and application development in general, but specifically in the integration space for our clients. You know, the ability to pay by the millisecond, to abstract away the operating system, instant scaling are all things that we've never had access to, at least at this scale. Now, with all these promises, there also comes a lot of risks and expenses that go with this. And so I'm excited for Aaron to take us through the opportunities, the risks, the pros and the cons today to give you guys the knowledge you need to chart your path forward on serverless. Now, before we jump into that, I want to just talk a little bit about Big Compass and who we are and what we're all about. So Big Compass exists to build connections in a disconnected world. We get up every day and we love connecting systems to systems, teams to teams, processes to processes, businesses to businesses, and so on and so forth. And we do this because we think that a more connected world is a better world. The more we lean on each other as a people, the better. And if you'd like to know more about more about that, let me know. But that's just a little bit about what motivates us here at Big Compass. Now, with all these connections between all these things, what does that do for our customers? We believe that a more connected system, or environment, organization leads to greater competitive advantage. With a more streamlined system that costs less and delivers more, you are more able to show up in your market and regularly beat your competition. And again, we'd love to talk about this for the next 60 minutes, but we have other things to focus on. Now, the 6 things that we are seeing in the marketplace that drive competitive advantage from an integration perspective are listed on the screen. And serverless and cloud is number 6. Now, we put it at the bottom because that's a nice lead into the content, but by no means is it last in our priority list. We are super excited about this technology and are sure that you guys are going to get some value out of it. And we are already seeing our customers getting our value out of it now. So don't hesitate to reach out if there's anything we can do to help you guys get up and running in the cloud and serverless integration space. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Aaron. He's the Cloud Practice Manager here at Big Compass. And if you think I'm excited about serverless, wait till you hear Aaron. So Aaron, without further ado, I'd like to pass the mic to you.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. I'll go camera on just for a second to quickly introduce myself. I think I've already gotten 2 introductions. As Tim and David both said, I'm the Cloud Practice Manager here at Big Compass, and have come up with an integration background, originally starting in web methods and MuleSoft as my background, and now bringing that integration experience over to the cloud in AWS and driving integration as a competitive advantage within our cloud practice here at Big Compass. So for the purposes of the presentation, I'm actually going to go off camera here while we're presenting. But what we're here to talk about today is serverless, as Tim said. We're here to talk about the benefits of serverless and counterbalance that with the serverless blind spots that are so common. And of course, getting into the use cases for serverless too, because it's always important to take a step back and just determine that you're not fitting a square peg into a round hole, that you're using serverless for the right use cases and only the right use cases. And you also want to quickly migrate to the cloud. This is what so many businesses are after today. And real quick, we're also going to talk about what's happening in the industry and why are we even talking about serverless in the first place. So what's happening in the industry is that 84% of on-premise servers are over-provisioned. And this could be iPaaS solutions or any legacy system that's on-premise. 84% or almost all of those are over-provisioned. And due to the nature of on-premise servers, you're almost forced to over-provision your servers. In fact, it could be a smart move to over-provision your servers because you want that wiggle room within those servers to be able to scale up if needed. And what's more, it's very difficult to right-size those servers. You don't want to come up against the point where a bottleneck is created due to the capacity on your on-premise servers. So you can run up against those scaling bottlenecks and overpriced resources due to this increasing your total cost of ownership to maintain that system. And this is exactly why so many organizations are looking to move to the cloud, where they don't have to be locked into physical capacity on their data center. And they can set up their foundation on a platform where they can innovate quickly and scale effortlessly and drive their competitive advantage. So why serverless specifically? We're here to talk about serverless, and it's just one slice of how businesses can use integration as a competitive advantage, like Tim just talked about. Serverless is hot right now. It excites a lot of people, including myself. I'm very passionate about it. But outside of just being exciting, it helps power integration as a competitive advantage because you can lower costs and increase reliability. And if you get your deployment cycle right, you can also rapidly produce flexible, scalable solutions quicker than ever before, even though your solutions might be more complex. So that allows you to innovate quickly and create integrations at a pace faster than ever before. And you can also stay ahead of technological trends. And what I mean by this is that your workloads running through your integration platforms are becoming more and more diverse. You're only increasing traffic, and more systems are talking to each other these days than ever before, and it's becoming more unpredictable than ever before. And so you're really opening yourself up to the serverless cloud, and that allows you to open yourself up to the rapid innovation of AWS specifically also. And you don't even know how you're going to use that in the future, but hooking into AWS allows you to take advantage of the continuing innovation that AWS constantly produces. So serverless is relatively new. I want to give you the common benefits and pitfalls of serverless so you can understand fully, the value that serverless can provide. And like any technology, of course, it has its downsides. So we're going to talk about those common pitfalls and blind spots as well, and the mitigation techniques so you can most effectively implement serverless. So the benefits of serverless are vast, and I'm going to talk about 6 of the main benefits here. And this is where you can derive a ton of value using a serverless architecture for your integration. So I want to enable you to help you understand the real world benefits. And the first benefit of serverless is scalability. This is what many people think about. By default in AWS, you can spin up to 1,000 concurrent Lambdas. And serverless doesn't just scale up, it also scales in too. And this is a major benefit for workloads that you don't need to keep always on. And it's an extremely common integration scenario where you might have processes scaling up, but then scaling back down, and maybe it's dormant overnight. And then high availability is a second benefit. The wonderful thing about serverless services is that they're highly available out of the box. And with integration platforms needing to get as close to 100% SLAs that they can pass on to your clients and customers, this allows you to pass on great SLAs and better SLAs to the clients consuming your system. And just be careful of VPCs here, especially with AWS Lambdas, which can actually work against you for high availability. You actually want to stay away from VPCs, and it's one of the common pitfalls, actually. And then security is a third benefit. Security of serverless services in AWS is controlled primarily by identity and access management. And so if your IAM roles are solid, you will be actually inherently secure with your serverless services. And of course, if you are exposing your serverless services externally through APIs or other means, you have to think about those scenarios, but of course, only in those scenarios. They are inherently secure. The first 3 benefits here really allow an organization to focus on development rather than worrying about implementing the right architecture for scaling and high availability and security. So you still have to think about those things, but again, only for the specific scenarios, again, helping you speed up your service development lifecycle. The fourth benefit is skill sets. Like I said earlier, serverless is hot and it excites a lot of people. So if you're looking for serverless talent, including Big Compass, a lot of people will be excited to work on those projects. Coding in serverless is also relatively language agnostic. We prefer Node.js and Java here at Big Compass, but there's many other languages that you can code in serverless, and many serverless services are actually codeless. So it allows you to stand up serverless services very quickly. Cost is a fifth benefit. Big Compass has also helped our customers save over 90% in ongoing cost by moving their integration platform to the serverless cloud in AWS. This is huge for businesses. They can reduce their ongoing cost by over 90%. So first, it's very easy and cheap to run serverless services, and you're using and adopting a pay-as-you-go model for the most part. And what's more, even in AWS, Lambda executions are free for the first 1 million requests per month, which is awesome, huge benefit. 1 million requests free that you get for your common serverless services per month. Second, scaling down is a huge win. So when services are off, you are typically not getting charged for them because you're adopting this pay-as-you-go model. And then finally, all of these kind of roll up into this benefit of innovation. These benefits spur innovation. Serverless allows you to focus on feature development rather than the minutia of network security and VMs and virtualization, all these other things that you need to think about with your on-premise deployments. So you simply develop within a great service development lifecycle and DevOps framework. You check in code, you deploy, and you stay focused just on that piece. Great feature development. It allows you to build out a more rich feature set quicker. And you also don't have to worry about, in some common iPaaS platforms, not having a connector to fit the need. It allows you the flexibility and the freedom to build what you want, when you want. So to balance that now, let's talk about the serverless blind spot. So the benefits of serverless can really catapult a business into the stratosphere, but we need to counterbalance that because we're not just going to raise the flag of serverless and tell you that's good in every single situation. And most of these pitfalls can actually be mitigated with a mindset shift. I want to preface this slide with saying that. Mindset shift in that there's no infrastructure to manage. Concurrency and parallel processing is absolutely king when it comes to serverless, and distributed microservices need to play well together sometimes. And it's a pay-as-you-go model. So if you shift your mindset into thinking in the way of distributed microservices running in parallel, you'll be much better set up to be able to mitigate these common blind spots. So the first common blind spot is cold starts. And cold starts can occur on AWS Lambdas, and it's a really dreaded problem to have, especially when you need a rapid response from your Lambda or API gateway. And cold starts, just to define them, is a result of a serverless microservice running on AWS's infrastructure. And when it goes to sleep for too long, when it's not used for too long of a period of time, that particular microservice needs to load back into memory to actually run that function. So the larger the function and the more complicated the VPC networking, as I mentioned on the previous slide, the worse the cold start can be. So keep your functions small, and by best practice, don't put your Lambdas in a VPC unless absolutely necessary. And there's also pre-warming techniques that you can employ to mitigate this blind spot. Governance is the second blind spot. So everyone loves microservices, and we love to create them for the variety of benefits that they give us. But as you create more serverless microservices, your governance over those can quickly expand and explode if you're not ready for it. So I've seen many thousands of AWS Lambdas in a single AWS account. And you can imagine it can quickly get out of hand without the right governance system in place. So planning is absolutely crucial here. And you're going to want to think about dashboards that you can create and monitoring services that you can use to monitor all those different microservices and create great DevOps processes and automate using CI/CD pipelines here. Because if you truly need 1,000 Lambdas out there, you're going to want to start to automate those deployments because it's going to get unmanageable very quickly. And just practice good serverless hygiene. So if you're using things like CloudFormation, for example, to stand up your serverless services, it's not only easy to stand up those serverless services, it's easy to tear them down as well. So practice good hygiene there and tear down any serverless services you're not using because they can get out of hand quickly, like I said.
Yeah, Aaron, and I want to just zoom in on that a little bit there. You know, to put some numbers to this, we were involved in a project that easily had 1,000 Lambdas spun up. They were able to get to market really quick, but the amount of tech debt that was created was, easily on the order of 20 to 40% of the whole project. They had to invest that much more money to go back and refactor the Lambdas to get them back into a governable state. And if they didn't do that, they were left with updating individual jars and individual Lambdas. And the runtime maintenance was expensive, and the cost to refactor their Lambdas was expensive. So just getting one foot in front of the other from the beginning is critical here.
Couldn't agree more. Yep. The third blind spot is visibility now. And so again, the mindset shift of using many parallel processing functions and distributed microservices is a game changer for mitigating this blind spot. And without planning to actually see into your serverless services, especially when you have those thousands of serverless services developed that are out there, the minute you have an error, you need to find that quickly and determine what function that actually occurred and at what point in that function. So no integration platform, of course, is complete without good supportability. And so mitigating this blind spot is really about a well-designed, externalized, centralized logging and monitoring framework. So this could be within AWS. Think tools like X-Ray, Elasticsearch. You can even log to a database like RDS or Dynamo, for example. Or it could be externalized to Splunk or other external systems. The fourth blind spot is parallel processing. Again, the mindset shift here of parallel processing functions is absolutely critical. I can't stress it enough. Scaling on demand is a double-edged sword when it comes to integration. So on one hand, you want to be able to process really, really quickly, but on the other hand, what this means is that out-of-order delivery could easily become an issue now, and flooding a downstream system could easily become an issue now. And these are two very common integration patterns that can become non-trivial challenges if you don't think about these. So throttling back a Ferrari here sometimes is what you actually need to do. You might need to put that V4 or V6 engine in a Ferrari rather than, letting it go at full speed. It happens all the time, and you can use a stage for order delivery. You can throttle back your AWS Lambda or use a queue in front of your Lambdas to be able to mitigate this blind spot. Duplicate detection is number 5. This blind spot bites almost everyone. It's a silent killer sometimes, even for businesses, because it happens rarely enough that it can slip through QA testing very, very easily. So an upstream system integrating with your system can produce a duplicate, or the actual serverless service like SQS in AWS can produce a duplicate message due to its underlying distributed architecture. So maintaining some sort of ledger of events that go through your system is the mitigation technique here, and making sure that that ledger is easily accessible and quick, because especially as you onboard more traffic into your system, you need to make sure that your duplication detection system is very, very quick and can scale. And then you want to use the right tool for the job. So there's times when you just want to try to fit a square peg into a round hole, but try to avoid that here. Serverless is great because you can code for virtually any use case, but there's use cases where combining serverless with the right tool for the job 100% makes sense. And we're going to introduce a hybrid approach here. And I'll talk about that more later. And we strongly believe in hybrid solutions here, where you can use the strengths, say, of an iPaaS platform like MuleSoft or Dell Boomi with the strengths of serverless services, like AWS Lambda and SQS. So we'll talk about some good use cases and anti-use cases here in a minute. And so you might be thinking at this point, before we talk about use cases, is serverless right for me? And don't worry too much quite yet. Number one, because serverless can be your primary approach, but augmentation is going to be expected, whether it's on your path to migrating to the serverless cloud, or whether it's when you're in the serverless cloud and you're combining that piece of technology with an iPaaS platform, for example. So organizations rarely get to the final goal of being 100% serverless cloud native. So don't worry too much about getting there. So I want to pause really quick. Now we've talked about benefits and pitfalls, and see if there's any questions out there, David.
Yeah, Aaron, it's a great time. Just from a time check standpoint, we're about 20 minutes in right now. I did have a question that came in, and I think you may have covered it in the blind spots, but I think maybe circling back on it might help. The question is this: with the serverless blind spot of parallel processing leading to sometimes throttling back and duplicates leaking through the system, is it true that the system becomes more delicate at higher volumes? So can you address that real quick? Is it true that the system becomes more delicate at high volumes?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So number one, I would say it's not entirely true. And it's not entirely true because if you plan at those higher volumes to handle those blind spots, you'll be okay. And I think number one, serverless services are meant to scale. They're meant for large amounts of traffic to run through the serverless services. That's exactly what they're meant for. And when you're implementing things like duplicate detection, you just need to make sure in your design that your duplicate detection can scale with your traffic. So it's not a more delicate solution. It's that you might see more duplicates, but if your duplication detection system, for example, is put in place to be able to scale elegantly and handle those duplicate events and even log them out in an elegant way, you'll be set up to be able to scale and handle large amounts of traffic very nicely.
Great. I hope that answers the question. And I'll encourage everyone else to enter your questions. in the Q&A, and I'll pick those up, and we'll interject here in a second. Aaron, I'm looking forward to going through some of these use cases, so I'll turn this back over to you.
All right, thanks. So let's talk about those use cases now. One of the primary use cases that I see for serverless, I see absolutely all the time. Within your system, you get a huge burst of messages or requests due to events occurring at a specific point in the day. It happens all the time in integration systems. Your current servers might be beefed up and over-provisioned to be able to handle these large bursts today, and this can result in slowdowns and bottlenecks or large costs due to that high capacity server. And what's more is you're paying a lot to maintain these large bursts, even when your system is sitting idle for the majority of the time. So you might only be on, maybe 1 hour of the day, but you're still paying for that server. So with serverless, you can invoke your processing layer from incoming messages that scale out to thousands of concurrently processing lambdas. And this only allows you to process faster, handle the bursts with ease, and best of all, use your assets more efficiently, because you might only have these lambdas awake for 1 hour of the day, and this ultimately helps you reduce your cost. The second use case is sporadic workloads. And in this use case, low to medium volume business processes can create sporadic workloads on your integration system. And one such example of this is when you need to reconcile invoice when a customer makes a request on demand. It might happen a few times a day, but most of the day, again, your process might be off. And you need to reconcile those invoices maybe 10, 20, maybe even 50 times a day. Today, you probably have a server, again, that's always on, so you can handle this request on demand. But with serverless, you're taking advantage of being able to scale out and being able to scale in. So the beauty of auto scaling is not just your ability to scale out, it's also your ability to scale in too, which helps you save that cost. And with serverless, you can invoke your processing layer, again, at any time. Other than that, it's completely dormant, and for the most part, you're not paying for those services that are completely dormant. And use case number 3 is extending the life of legacy system. We at Big Compass are seeing this more and more in our integration projects. And organizations want to move to the cloud, but they also want to extend the life of their current system in the interim. So legacy system may not have the internet connectivity because it's in the DMZ, or it may have very strict firewall rules that provoke a lot of red tape to get through. And that prevents rapid innovation, ultimately. And the legacy system might even be pushed to its limits. Many times what I see work really well is putting an API gateway in front of the legacy system to be able to handle the control and security and reliability and those customer-facing endpoints that can abstract your legacy system. So the public serverless API can now be more flexible and open up the way in which you expose your legacy system. And it can also hold requests if you're worried about flooding your legacy system. It can hold those requests and act as that control point. And you can pass SLAs onto your customers to be able to throttle their requests to your legacy system. And so again, opening up yourself up to the serverless cloud opens you up to the rapid innovation of AWS. And you don't even know how you're going to use that in the future, but hooking your legacy system into AWS allows you to take advantage of the innovation opportunities. And finally, this is sort of a super use case, which is APIs. And this is bringing a few of the use cases together. It's a great culmination of many of those use cases, where the use cases for APIs these days are almost limitless, right? You might have a customer-facing API that gets order information and processes orders when clients make requests to your API. And the more you onboard clients that consume your system, the more diversity of traffic you have on this API. And therefore, the more you need to prepare for reliability and scalability of that API. And luckily, with Amazon API Gateway out of the box, it can handle 10,000 requests per second. That's out of the box. It can handle 10,000 requests per second. So that's going to allow you to scale very, very nicely just with a single API. And behind that, of course, API Gateway can invoke thousands of concurrently processing lambdas to be able to get and process those orders that sit behind your API. And so ultimately, instead of having to scale your servers up or buying additional vCores or licenses, you can use a pay-as-you-go model with a reliable, scalable API gateway on AWS. And really, this allows you to absorb future workload. Where we know that with APIs, that traffic is only increasing, so you can prepare and feel comfortable with absorbing future workload that you know you're going to get on your APIs. So let's talk about the opposite now. When is it not the best use case for using serverless services? And one great example of this is messaging not in AWS. If you need to continuously pull an external queue, like a JMS queue for messages, let's say you may need to maintain an open connection to that external JMS queue to grab any new messages coming through that queue so you can process the message, this might not be the best use case for serverless, because essentially what you would be creating is a serverless solution that is always on. And it kind of goes against the premise of serverless. Serverless, you want to be able to wake up on demand and then go dormant. Wake up and then go dormant and repeat that cycle. So it's not necessarily a bad solution if you were to do that. It's just that another tool might be better for the job, say an iPaaS solution, because it can maintain an open connection to the third-party system rather than putting extra logic and complexity into your AWS Lambda to code for an always-on solution. And the last serverless use case where you might want to rethink using serverless and use another tool for is massive data enrichment and transformation. And a great example of this is receiving a large manifest of the entire dump of records from a client system. I've seen this in many integration platforms. The file comes in on FTP, it might be 5 gigabytes in size. And the maximum Lambda memory is actually only 3 gigabytes in size. And so what you could do is you could develop a more complex architecture to split the file before processing it in AWS Lambda. But then once you get there, even if you get there, there's still not an out-of-the-box transformation utility that is offered by AWS Lambda. So you'd have to code specifically for that transformation and come up with an elegant way to be able to handle that. So again, it's not a bad solution. It's just that another tool might be better for the job, because tools are specifically made to be able to handle these large files and transform files and enrich files. So hopefully I got you pretty excited. You might be getting really excited about this, and it is exciting. Serverless is exciting. You might be thinking about all these things like reliability and the performance that serverless can give you, and the inherently secure nature of serverless, and the operational excellence that you can achieve, and the costs that you can save. But we want to put you on the right migration path now. If you're going to take up serverless as an integration model, we want to put you on the right path to getting there. And so let's talk about finding your path to getting you to the serverless cloud. I want to be able to enable you to think about the best approach to get you there. And knowing the use cases and benefits and pitfalls at this point allows you to think about how you can most effectively get your organization to the serverless cloud. And it's really not the technology that's going to let you down. It's a very robust, exciting technology that allows you to innovate quickly, as I've said. It's your plan and design and usage of the tool that can succeed or fail. And I believe that's the same case with any technology. So there's typically a few paths that businesses can take on their way to the serverless cloud. Number one would be a custom cloud strategy. And a custom cloud strategy is one where integrations are custom built using services provided by AWS. This strategy gives you the most capability and flexibility, but also requires the most amount of initial investment. So you just have to balance those and keep that in mind. A hybrid approach, which I've alluded to now earlier in the presentation, is one great approach to enablement. And we're really a big fan here at Big Compass of this hybrid approach. And what you're doing in your hybrid approach is you're combining the strengths of your iPaaS or your legacy system with serverless. And so what that allows you to do is this can be great because you can combine those strengths and you can dissect your current system for the best use cases, and only those best use cases, to actually move to serverless. So it allows you to take a more unbiased approach rather than trying to fit the square peg into a round hole. And of course, there's always the option of waiting and revisiting. So sometimes doing nothing is the right answer. And in cases where you might have conflicting drivers in terms of business stakeholders, sometimes doing nothing and waiting is the right answer. And hybrid is so important that I just want to talk about it a little bit more. And really, no matter your path, you're going to see some form of hybrid along the way. So plan for hybrid because it's going to be a given. Your hybrid, if your identity provider is separate from your API management. Your hybrid if you combine MuleSoft with AWS, even though you're all deployed to the cloud. Your hybrid if you're using a transformation tool that's different from your routing logic. And in your hybrid if you're sending email once a week to collect payments from a customer even. So regardless of your approach, at some point, whether you're migrating to the serverless cloud or your final solution will be being in the serverless cloud combined with something like an iPaaS solution, you're going to run across hybrid. And we fully support this model here at Big Compass. And what that allows you to do is adopt the quickest and best way to get to the serverless cloud, actually. And so that the quickest way to do that is really decomposing your existing system and looking for those best candidates to move to the cloud. And that is why the planning phase is absolutely critical if you're going to go down this path. And in your planning, your system based on two dimensions, really. And those two dimensions would be the system components of your actual system, and then the processes running through your system. And based on those two dimensions, you're more than likely going to find some great serverless candidates that you can move off of your iPaaS or legacy system and onto the serverless cloud. And really, your bridge to the serverless cloud is iterative success through this hybrid approach. I strongly believe that. And that's exactly what Big Compass can help you with. We would bring in our integration knowledge combined with our cloud knowledge to be able to help you identify great candidates that can work with a serverless cloud. So how can we accomplish this, and what does this look like in practice? It's not some magic trick or marketing scheme. It's based on experience. And we want you to be successful if you choose to take this path, because it has been tried and true methodology for us, and we would recommend it, and we would use this methodology. So we have a few phases here. Number one, we would inventory those processes. This can be half the battle. And I've seen this many times in working with organizations, that processes just probably aren't inventoried to the state that they should be. And inventorying those processes and understanding your current system, like I said, can be half the battle. So getting through this step is absolutely crucial in your planning phase, because once you get through this step, you can really have that good understanding of your system. And then step two would be a checkpoint. And you can use this checkpoint to really take a step back and look at all of the processes that you've inventoried, look at your system and ask yourself, do I have good candidates to move to serverless? And you want to take an unbiased approach here, because if you don't have good candidates to move to serverless, maybe you're already using the right solution for the job, for your integration platform today. But typically what we're finding is, at a bare minimum, at least 20% of your processes and system components would benefit from moving to the serverless cloud. So after this checkpoint, what you're going to want to do from that inventory is prioritize the serverless candidates. And you can prioritize based on a few different dimensions. You can prioritize based on complexity and risk of those processes. Maybe there's upcoming timelines that you need to meet. And it could also be based on business stakeholders, what business stakeholders want to push over to the serverless cloud. And once you're done prioritizing, now you sort of get into a typical service development lifecycle, where you can design now for the serverless cloud working with your existing system. So you have to think about that. You have to think about adopting the serverless cloud. You have to think about whether you need customer communication or not. And so you're getting into migration as well as architecture of what your serverless cloud implementation will look like. So at a certain point here, you can use prior knowledge to an extent and use those SMEs that you've worked with on your legacy or iPaaS implementation. But sooner rather than later, you're going to want to involve AWS experts, like we have here at Big Compass, and you want to ensure that your serverless architecture is sound before moving into that implementation phase. And then you can get to your implementation phase. Again, people are excited to work on serverless, but you're going to want to involve people with the know-how so you can mitigate those blind spots that we talked about, and those blind spots don't bite you down the road. And finally, you can deploy and run your workload. And that would put you in the serverless cloud. You would have serverless cloud adoption at that point, even if it's only one process. Ultimately, you can take this on. We want you to be successful because we're excited about the serverless cloud. And you can also call us to take you through the planning and design and implementation of your serverless cloud adoption, because we're also very excited about this. And finally, you want to adopt the serverless cloud quickly, and you want to achieve the maximum ROI that you can possibly achieve. So failing fast is a great approach for this. And this type of approach will allow your business to test the waters with minimal risk. And at Big Compass, we even have a serverless accelerator that you can get up and running with serverless services in AWS more quickly than you typically would. And it would help you mitigate those common blind spots that we've talked about. And we can come in with integration expertise and mitigation techniques for all of those pitfalls that we've talked about. And so from all of that, we can get you operational in the cloud in 30 days or less. And that might seem like a bold statement, but it's very possible. There's processes out there in almost every organization, every integration platform, where it's an absolute no-brainer to move to the serverless cloud. And you might have battled with this process for a long time, or it's causing a bottleneck in your system, and it's causing pain points for you right now. And these are great candidates to move to the serverless cloud and to prove your serverless approach and do it quickly. And so overall, we believe that at a bare minimum, 20% of your portfolio can benefit from a serverless cloud adoption. Sometimes it might even be more like 80%. So we would encourage you to look through your portfolio and find those candidates. And we can also help you with that if your organization doesn't have the people or the expertise. And so with this iterative approach, that's really the bottom line. This is an iterative approach. So with this iterative approach, you can adopt the serverless cloud quickly and at minimal risk. And this allows you time to get used to supporting the serverless cloud in AWS. And it even gives you an option to back down if serverless is not for you. It gives you a rollback or a back down option, which a lot of people like. So maybe serverless doesn't seem supportable once you actually get there. You can get there in 30 days or less and then make a go or no go decision, which can be really valuable to some businesses.
Hey, Aaron, this
go ahead.
I had a question on the timing thing that came in, and I wanted to ask it because I think it's appropriate right here. Says the question is, can you talk about a timeline of a real use case you have implemented with serverless? You've talked about a quick 30-day here, but the question is more of, what's a real use case? Maybe one of the ones that you've talked about earlier that you can give us a real life perspective on.
Yeah, great question. 30 days or less might seem far-fetched, right? But what we've implemented in the most simple form is a simple transformation serverless service that has been deployed to AWS's cloud using SQS and AWS Lambda. And this simple transformation service was stood up in just a couple of days. And it stood up in just a couple of days, number one, because it's just that, it's simple. It was straightforward. And it's just like any other project that you're working on. The most simple of processes are going to allow you to create those features very, very, very quickly. In this case, it was a simple transformation that we had to achieve, and we had it deployed all the way, from development through testing and deployed within just a couple of days. But of course, that can expand very, very quickly. And the more components you add and the more complexity you add, you're going to be getting into the realm of months, And so the largest serverless implementation that we've done on an entire integration platform is about 6 months. And so you can see the great differentiation there, where your most simple serverless candidates, very feasible to get operational cloud in 30 days or less. But your most complex and migrating entire systems is, of course, going to take longer than that.
Great. Thank you for the answer. We're about 40 minutes in, Aaron, so I'll give it back over to you.
Okay. All right. So that is adopting the serverless cloud quickly. And of course, serverless is something, like I said, that we're very passionate about here. I'm personally very passionate about it. It allows us to bring innovation to integration, allows businesses to be highly competitive in your respective industries. So next steps would be, don't hesitate to reach out. You can reach out to me specifically, aaron@bigcompass.com, for an assessment of processes to migrate to the cloud. And you can also contact me to begin your first POC in 30 days or less, like I said. So we don't have to engage in any one particular way. It could be us coaching you through this process, and we're happy to do that. It could be that you need to strategize before making the leap to the serverless cloud, and we can do that too, or anything in between, from assessment to design to development. So I'd like to thank everyone. I really thank you all for attending. The recording will be posted as well as the slides. Thank you, everyone.